The village had exactly 3 rules that mattered more than law, weather, or common sense. First, anything unfamiliar was dangerous. Second, anything dangerous was evil. Third, anything evil was someone else's problem until it crawled into your backyard and scared your chickens. So when the sky tore itself open with a sound like a drunk god ripping cloth, the villagers reacted the only way they knew how, by screaming, running in circles, and immediately deciding whose fault it was. The object didn't explode. It didn't burn the fields. It didn't summon demons. It simply landed. Gently. Politely. Almost apologetically. A smooth, oval pod settled just beyond the vegetable plots, steaming slightly, as if embarrassed by the attention. The elders arrived first, armed with sticks that had never successfully defended anything in recorded history. Behind them came the adults, parents, shopkeepers, farmers, all whispering theories that grew more dramatic with every step. It was a weapon. It was a curse. It was a tax collector from the capital in disguise. The pod opened with a soft hiss. Out stepped the monster. She was tall, but not threateningly so. Her skin shimmered faintly, like moonlight caught in oil. Her eyes were too large by human standards, expressive in a way that made adults deeply uncomfortable. Her hair, or something that pretended to be hair, floated slightly, responding to air currents that didn't exist. She looked around, tilted her head, and spoke in a melodic tone that translated itself into the villagers' language with unsettling accuracy. "Hello?" she said. "I appear to be lost." That was all it took. Someone screamed. Someone fainted. Someone dropped a basket of turnips and blamed her for it. "Monster!" a man shouted, pointing with righteous terror. The words spread instantly, passed mouth to mouth like tradition. Monster. 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 It wrapped around her like a label slapped onto a jar no one planned to open. She blinked, confused. On her world, monsters were legendary beasts that consumed suns and sang lullabies while doing it. She was neither hungry nor singing. But she filed the information away carefully. Humans called unfamiliar caregivers monsters. Noted. While the adults panicked, the children did something unforgivable. They walked closer. A small girl tugged free from her mother's grip and stared openly, head tilted in curiosity. A boy followed, then another. Fear never quite reached them. They saw shimmering skin and floating hair and thought not danger, but interesting. The alien girl knelt instinctively, lowering herself to their level. She emitted a soft sound, not language, but rhythm. A harmonic vibration designed to calm juvenile nervous systems. The effect was immediate. The children stopped fidgeting. One sat down. Another yawned. A baby that had been crying for no apparent reason went quiet, eyes fluttering. The adults noticed. "What did you do to them?" someone demanded. "Why are they so calm?" another whispered, horrified. The alien girl looked genuinely pleased. "Your offspring appear stressed," she said. "This helps." That was the wrong answer. The parents surged forward, scooping up their suddenly peaceful children as if calmness itself were contagious. They backed away, clutching them protectively, whispering warnings. "She's controlling them. She's eating their thoughts. She's a monster." The children protested, reaching back, asking when the floating lights would come back. One toddler laughed and clapped as the alien girl, confused but polite, made a small toy levitate. It bobbed gently, glowing warm blue. That was when she understood. Not consciously. Not with logic. But with the deep, biological certainty of her species. The children weren't afraid. Only the adults were. Over the next few days, the village held meetings. Many meetings. Emergency meetings. Meetings about meetings. The alien girl watched from a respectful distance, trying not to frighten anyone by existing too close. They debated driving her away. Burning her pod. Praying louder. None of these plans addressed the growing problem. Children kept wandering toward her. They followed her like ducklings. They sat nearby while she hummed. They stopped crying when she was close. Parents dragged them away, only to find them calmer, better behaved, and, most suspiciously, sleeping through the night. Sleep was unheard of. Mothers whispered about it in shame. Fathers pretended not to notice that their children stopped throwing tantrums after spending time near the monster. The alien girl noticed patterns. Human juveniles were overstimulated, underslept, emotionally volatile. The adults responded with noise, threats, and sugar. This was inefficient. On her world, communal care was sacred. If one caregiver was rejected, another tried. She had no mate here, no nest, no community, but she did have skills. So she did the most reasonable thing imaginable. She opened a daycare. It began quietly. A simple shaded area near her pod. Soft floating cushions. Gentle lights. Symbols instead of words. No invitation, no announcement. The first child arrived by accident. Then another. Then 5. Parents pretended they didn't see it happening. They scolded publicly, complained loudly, and warned each other about the monster's influence. But when exhaustion won, and it always did, they lingered. Just a moment longer. Just until the child stopped crying. The alien girl never asked for payment. She never pressured. She simply cared. And that, more than anything, terrified the village. Because monsters weren't supposed to be good with children. And yet, every night the kids slept. And every adult wondered, silently, dangerously, the unthinkable question forming in their minds. If this was a monster, what did that make them? By the 4th morning, the village had decided on a strategy that had worked for generations. Whenever something uncomfortable refused to go away, complained loudly and hoped the problem developed shame. The alien girl woke to shouting. Not threatening shouting. Not yet. This was organized outrage, the kind that came with folded arms, dramatic sighs, and neighbors performing anger for each other more than for the target. A line of adults stood at a respectful distance from her pod, faces stern, voices overlapping. She's encouraging dependence. She's undermining traditional parenting. My son said her lullaby works better than mine. That last complaint was delivered with particular bitterness. The alien girl listened carefully, nodding as if attending a lecture. Her translator flagged several emotional inconsistencies, but she ignored them. On her world, emotional noise often masked biological need. What she heard underneath was exhaustion. So she adjusted. She placed a simple sign near the shaded area. No words, just symbols. A small human figure. A rest symbol. A time cycle. And a large, gentle-looking creature holding hands with a smaller one. The meaning was clear enough that no one wanted to admit understanding it. The protests escalated immediately. A man stood on a crate and declared that allowing monsters to watch children was the first step towards societal collapse. He was applauded by people who would later sneak past the crate under cover of darkness. A woman demanded to know what qualifications the alien girl had. When asked about her own, she left the conversation abruptly. The alien girl did not argue. She did not defend herself. She did not explain her doctoral-level knowledge of developmental biology across 17 species. Humans, she had learned, preferred discovering competence accidentally. The first secret drop-off happened before sunset. A hooded figure approached, glancing around as if committing a crime. He cleared his throat. Just watch him for a bit, he muttered, placing a squirming toddler on a floating cushion. I'll be back soon. The alien girl nodded solemnly. The toddler stopped squirming within seconds, captivated by glowing shapes that responded to his giggles. The man did not return for 3 hours. By nightfall, the daycare was full. Parents arrived in disguises that fooled no one. Scarves pulled low. Names changed. Entire personalities altered. One woman introduced her daughter as, "Definitely not my child." The alien girl accepted them all without comment. Inside the shaded area, time behaved differently. Not through technology, though there was some of that, but through calm. Zero-gravity naps floated children gently above soft cushions, swaying in slow orbits. Lullabies shifted pitch automatically to match heart rates. toys responded to curiosity rather than demand. There was no yelling, no crying, no chaos. The children emerged changed. Cleaner, calmer, more focused. One boy said please, without being threatened. Another shared voluntarily. A third explained his feelings with words that startled his father into silence. The village did not know how to handle this. Publicly, the outrage intensified. Meetings were called. Committees formed. Plans drafted. Someone suggested banning floating objects. Someone else suggested banning naps. Privately, the waiting line grew. Parents compared notes in whispers. Who slept longest? Who stopped biting? Who asked thoughtful questions at dinner? They pretended coincidence. The alien girl noticed the pattern of arrivals. Same parents who shouted loudest during the day arrived latest at night. Shame, she concluded, was a powerful scheduling tool. She expanded. More cushions. More light patterns. A structured routine optimized for human circadian rhythms. She documented responses carefully, filing reports she had no one to send them to. That was when the rumors started. She's replacing us. She's trying to make them prefer her. She's doing something unnatural. The alien girl paused at that one. On her world, unnatural was a meaningless accusation usually followed by ignorance. Still, she adjusted again. She encouraged parents to stay, to watch, to participate. Most refused. A few stayed, arms crossed, waiting for something to go wrong. It never did. Instead, they watched their children thrive in ways they hadn't realized were possible. Watched patience replace panic. Watched curiosity bloom instead of fear. One mother cried quietly and didn't know why. The tipping point came with naps. Human children, it turned out, were desperately tired. The alien girl's zero-gravity rest cycle didn't just help them sleep, it taught them how to rest. Parents picked up children who had slept deeply, peacefully, and without screaming. This was unforgivable. The next day, the village held a protest directly outside the daycare. Signs appeared. Poorly spelled. Emotionally charged. Monsters don't raise humans. Keep our kids human. No floating bedtime. Behind the signs, children tugged on sleeves, asking to go inside. The alien girl stood calmly, watching the contradiction perform itself. That evening, every protester returned. Some didn't even bother hiding. A man who had shouted loudest in the morning quietly asked if she could keep his twins overnight. Just once. For health reasons. Very serious health reasons. She agreed. By the end of the week, the daycare had a waiting list. Parents still called her a monster. But they trusted her with the only things they truly cared about. And that realization unsettled them far more than any alien ever could. The second arrival did not come gently. The ground did not tear open, but it did reconsider its priorities. Something heavy descended just beyond the fields, shaking loose dust, pride, and several poorly built fences. Chickens fled. Dogs hid. One elderly man declared this was exactly why he never trusted calm monsters, because they always invited louder ones. The alien girl looked up from organizing floating cushions and froze. Her posture changed instantly. Not fear. Recognition. "Oh," she said softly. "He found me." The village did what it did best. They panicked. This new creature was unmistakably a monster by every available human metric. Taller than any man in the village. Broad where buildings were narrow. Skin like layered stone with a faint metallic sheen. Eyes that glowed, not aggressively, but constantly, as if turning them off had never seemed necessary. He stepped forward carefully, as though aware that one wrong movement might flatten a livelihood. "I followed your signal," he said, voice deep enough to vibrate in chests. "You stopped transmitting." "I was busy," she replied, gesturing vaguely toward the daycare. He looked. Really looked. His glowing eyes scanned the floating cushions, the softly orbiting children, the complete absence of chaos. His posture shifted again, this time into something alarmingly formal. You established a juvenile care unit, he said, impressed. Yes. Without authorization. Yes. He considered this, then nodded. Efficient. That was the moment the villagers decided they were going to die. Someone screamed. Someone prayed. Someone tried to run and tripped over their own belief system. The monster, because there was no other word they were emotionally prepared to use, stepped closer to the daycare. Children noticed him immediately and reacted exactly the wrong way. They cheered. A boy waved. A girl asked if he was made of rocks. A toddler toddled directly toward his enormous feet and patted them approvingly. The monster froze. Slowly, carefully, he knelt. The ground protested again. Hello? He said, lowering his voice by several terrifying octaves. I am acceptable? The toddler nodded and handed him a glowing toy. The monster accepted it with the solemn reverence of someone being entrusted with a sacred artifact. Behind them, parents watched in horror as the scariest being they had ever seen became instantly irrelevant to the children's sense of safety. The monster straightened and turned to the alien girl. You did well, he said. Their stress indicators are reduced by 47%. I know, she said. They're tired. The monster looked confused. Why? She gestured broadly toward the village. Have you met their adults? He watched as two parents argued loudly about whether monsters should be allowed to exist while simultaneously nudging their child closer to the daycare entrance. I see the issue, he said. Without another word, he joined her. No announcement. No demand. He simply began helping. He organized. Structured. Optimized. Snack times occurred exactly when children needed them. Conflicts were resolved before escalating. Discipline was firm, logical, and delivered in calm tones that made human yelling look ridiculous. Biting is inefficient, he told one child gently. Use words. If that fails, request assistance. The child nodded, deeply impressed. Parents hovered, uncertain. This monster did not roar. He did not threaten. He did not dominate. He showed up. Every day. On time. He memorized names. Preferences. Allergies. Emotional triggers. He recorded progress in neat, incomprehensible symbols that somehow resulted in better naps. The village did not know how to respond. This was not the monster they had prepared for. They whispered, He's too serious. He stares. He doesn't blink. But when pickup time came, he was always there. Holding children securely. Reporting calmly. Offering suggestions that worked far better than anything humans had tried. One father bristled when the monster suggested a consistent bedtime. Another bristled when it worked. Slowly, grudgingly, the monster became indispensable. Parents began asking questions. Quietly. Embarrassed. How do you get them to listen? Why doesn't he throw tantrums anymore? The monster answered honestly. Consistency. Respect. Adequate rest. These answers offended many people. Still, they followed them. Publicly, the villagers continued their protests. Signs reappeared. Words like unnatural and dangerous were shouted with less conviction. Privately, the monster daddy, because the children had named him that, and the name stuck, became the standard. Monster daddy says, became the most effective sentence in the village. Human fathers felt conflicted emotions they had not signed up for. The monster daddy attended every pickup. Never late. Never distracted. Never dismissive. He listened. That alone unsettled them more than his sighs ever had. One evening, a villager finally snapped. How can a monster be a better father than us? He demanded. The monster daddy considered the question seriously. I am not better, he said. I am focused. The silence that followed was deeply uncomfortable. Children slept that night. Peacefully. And for the first time, the village began to suspect that the problem had never been the monsters at all. The crisis began, as most human crises did, with a celebration planned far too confidently. The village's annual festival arrived with banners, food stalls, loud music, and an impressive belief that nothing could possibly go wrong because it never had before. Parents bustled about, distracted and proud, eager to enjoy themselves for once. Children were everywhere, sticky-fingered and overexcited, running between legs and tables like chaos-given sneakers. The alien girl watched from the edge of the square, her head tilted slightly. Her companion stood beside her, arms crossed, eyes glowing steadily as he scanned the scene. "This environment is unstable," he said. "They'll manage," she replied, though her tone suggested uncertainty. They did not manage. It began with a minor argument over whose turn it was to watch the children. That argument turned into 3 arguments. Then someone assumed someone else was watching the children. Then no one was. Within minutes, a festival designed for joy transformed into noise and panic. A child climbed a stall. Another disappeared behind a crowd. A third began crying loudly enough to drown out the music. The villagers froze. This was not how it was supposed to go. Festivals were loud, yes, but this was different. This was uncontained. Parents shouted names. Stalls tipped. Someone dropped an entire pot of stew and mourned it like a fallen comrade. The alien girl did not hesitate. She moved. Her signal spread through the air, subtle and immediate. Lights from her devices rose, forming gentle guiding paths. Children paused, attention captured, curiosity replacing fear. The monster daddy followed, stepping forward with calm authority. "Remain where you are," he instructed the nearest parents. "We will return your offspring." No one argued. He coordinated like this was what he had been trained for his entire life. Which, in many ways, it was. He directed children into groups, reassured them with steady tones, lifted those who cried without embarrassment or force. The chaos dissolved. Parents watched, stunned, as their children were gathered, soothed, and returned in orderly lines. No yelling. No panic. No tears. Only competence. When the last child was safely returned, the village stood in silence. No one clapped. No one cheered. They simply looked at the monsters who had just saved their festival from collapse. An elder cleared his throat. "We appreciate your assistance." It was the closest thing to an apology the village was structurally capable of. The alien girl inclined her head politely. Life resumed. But it did not go back to how it had been. The daycare became permanent. No more hiding. No more disguises. Parents still used the word monster, but now it lacked venom. It became shorthand. A habit. Sometimes even affectionate. "Monster Daddy will handle it," someone would say, and the sentence carried relief instead of fear. The alien girl continued her care, expanding gently. Teaching parents without calling it teaching. Allowing humans to believe they were choosing change. Some never admitted they had been wrong. They didn't need to. Their children thrived anyway. One evening, as the village settled into quiet, the monster daddy watched the children sleep, floating peacefully under soft lights. "They have accepted us," he said. The alien girl smiled faintly. "They've accepted help." He considered this. "Is that humanity?" She looked out over the village, where lights glowed warmly and laughter drifted through open windows. "Yes," she said. "When they're tired enough." The monster daddy nodded, satisfied. The village still called them monsters. But when monsters were the ones who showed up, stayed late, listened, and cared without condition, the word lost its meaning. And humanity, embarrassed but wiser, quietly became better for it.